I'm here this morning at St. Joseph's Parish with Terry Byrne, our parish's volunteer historian. Terry published a book on the history of St. Joseph's Parish back in 2007. Today I thought it would be of interest to our parishioners to know a little bit more about what Terry has been up to since that time. So, Terry, you've been working with our parish records for a number of years. What prompted your interest?
Well, Chris, when I was doing my research to write the book, I came across our church records. Now, these are the records that record all our baptisms, marriages, confirmations, and deaths in the parish. And they go back to 1857. As an aside, none of these records were destroyed in the fire of 1931. But the records themselves were in very poor shape. I'll give you an example. This booklet here, recording all the baptisms, marriages, and burials from 1902 to 1911. Well, the front cover of this was missing, the spine was missing, and the pages inside were held together by thread. And the pages were loose and many were torn. So what we ended up doing was taking this book along with 17 other books and have them recovered by a person at St. Paul's University, Gerard Deschamps.
So,
go ahead.
yeah, so at this point you did a lot of work on recovering older records and ones that were not in great shape. At the moment, how would you say our records are? Are they at this point in a decent shape?
Actually, yes, Chris, they're in great shape right now. The other 18 books that made up our complement of 36 were in good shape, and we're in the process now of scanning our records, which will be great because they'll be digitized for our use in the future.
So in any Catholic church, marriage records are pretty important. When you started this work, how did you find the state of the church's marriage records?
Well, the big question here was, where were they? And I found them on top of a shelf in the hall on top of the stage. And they were there in no particular order, just a pile of boxes, one after the other. And these records dated back to 1940. So if anybody wanted to check a marriage record, somebody would have to climb up a ladder and go in to walk on this shelf, go through the boxes and find one, and then go through the records, and each box contained about 300 records. So to make it easier access, I moved all the records into the vault, and then I repackaged them all into the boxes, and then had someone check to make sure that they're in proper alphabetical order. But the marriage records are in really good shape, and the vault is dry for this purpose.
So at some point what we might do is actually give parishioners maybe a little bit of a view or look of the vault. People often don't know it even exists, but it's there.
Exactly.
Yeah, great. So what are you working towards now in terms of capturing the history of the parish?
Well, the big thing I've been working on for several years now is the photos of the parish. When I started my research on the book, we had a total of 88 photos on the parish, and they dated way back to 1990. We didn't have any before 1990 in our archives here. And I was doing newspaper cutouts. I was doing, looking at blueprints. I was looking at all sorts of different things in our history. But the photos was the first big thing I started working on.
So obviously the photos include a range of files and clippings, and the quantity of photos that you're dealing with in general in this parish, the ones that are still being processed. How would you give an idea of the volume of those photos?
I'd estimate there's at least 1,800 of them now. And I was able to obtain these photos from current parishioners, but also a great number from former parishioners who came to the parish back in the 50s, 40s, 50s. And I actually have a better collection of photos from 1938 to 1962 than I do from 1962 to 1982. Now all these photos have to go through, and a photo is not worth anything unless you can identify who's in the photo, or date it, or describe it was part of an event. And so I've been going through a lot of research to find out what each photo represents, and some of the parishioners have helped me, but I've also got information from a lot of other documents as to who's in these photos. Now, as I go through these photos, I scan them on my computer at home, so we have a digitized record. And then I'll be putting the hard copy of the photos in photo albums.
Okay, so it's a time-consuming process.
Very much so. One that I tend to do in the wintertime only.
I can imagine. So as we near the end of this segment, would you be able to tell us an anecdote from our parish's history?
Yes, I guess the one that would come to mind, which is somewhat amusing, is our former Prime Minister, William Lyon Mackenzie King. Now, he was a devout Presbyterian, I believe it was Presbyterian, and he was interested in marrying a young lady from our parish. And this is back in 1949. Now, for a non-Catholic to marry a Catholic required that the non-Catholic go through 6 lessons on learning what it meant for a person to live with a Catholic and what their responsibilities were as a Catholic. So, William Lyon Mackenzie King came here. He met with the parish priest, and he went through lesson 1, and then he went through lesson 2. But when lesson 3 came about, and he was doing this on a Wednesday night, it was bringing up your children Catholic. And Mr. King didn't really believe in that. In fact, according to Laurie Conlon, our pastor, who was curate at the time, he said, William Lyon Mackenzie King said, there's no damn way I'm going to bring up my children Catholic. And he got up and he left. And after that, well, history shows that he never got married.
Well, that's a good reminder of our not so distant social and cultural history in this part of Canada. I appreciate that little story, and we are going to continue these segments on the history of the parish.
Maybe, Chris, I could tell one more story about William Lyon Mackenzie King, since we're on the subject of him.
Why not?
He used to come to this church for funerals and marriages. And in his memoirs, he wrote that going to a Catholic service is like going for a workout. He says, first of all, you're standing, then you're kneeling, then you're sitting, then you don't get time to be comfortable sitting before you're back standing. Oh no, you have to go back to sitting now. Now you're kneeling. So he said, it's just like a bloody workout. So he was not overly impressed by how much movement there was in the Catholic service.
At least it keeps us in good shape.
Yes.
Thanks very much, Terry.
Thank you, Chris.